Hi, guys, and welcome to week 5 here for our governmental accounting course, spring 2022. Here in week 5, we're talking about financial reporting as well as performance analysis. So, again, I wanted to just put together this quick video just to kind of give you guys an introduction into some of the to the concepts and things that we'll be running into this week as we work our way through the different assignments. So, here we go. To start with, things around financial reporting. In the textbook, you're going to read and learn about the primary government and associations that are then made between other units within that government or kind of like almost like sibling organizations. So what's important to understand, and what some particulars that are in the chapter, but I just wanted to kind of add some more color to it for you guys, is legally separate and fiscally independent. So when we have those situations, that's unique. So what's legally separate really mean? Well, that's where through the articles of organization, there's actually entity A and entity B. They're legally separated by articles of incorporation or organization. Okay, fiscally independent. So that means, just like maybe some of you are traditional students, some maybe non-traditional students, but I think we can all relate back to, maybe a parent and a child relationship where, obviously a young child is very dependent on their parent, not only financially, but also for a lot of other things, right? But then hopefully somewhere around the time of college graduation, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, we start to have financial independence from our parents, right? So we have our own house, we have our own apartment, whatever it happens to be. We're not asking mom and dad for $20 or $50 every week for groceries or food or rent or whatever, right? We have that fiscal independence. So the same type of thing is also present here as we talk about financial reporting within different government agencies. So this flow chart really, I know it's in the chapter reading, but I just wanted to take a minute to kind of dissect it a little bit. Really, the big piece here is the PCU. The acronym there is it's a potential component unit. So what we're trying to decide is how we need to treat this this unit as far as our reporting goes. Where, based on the relationships in play, how does this entity, how does this unit get reported? So to start with, up here in the corner over here, is the potential component unit, is it legally separate from the primary government? If it is, does the primary government appoint a majority of the voters of the voting board? If it does, then we go to here. If it doesn't, then we go to here. And that's where we're getting into, right? Legally separate, right? And then fiscally dependency. Okay, so those are those two really important pieces. So you can see here, is the potential component unit legally separate? No. Does the does the primary government hold the potential component unit's corporate powers? If it does, it's part of the primary government. If it doesn't, it is not part of the primary government. Okay, so we need to kind of go through this as we have unique situations, so that we can ultimately make sure that we're reporting those units in the proper way. Again, because we have to follow the rules of GASB, right? So this flow chart, this decision tree, is really helping us determine: is it part of the primary government? Is it not? Is it discretely presented? So just kind of in aggregate, kind of off to the side, or is it part of our primary government in a way that we actually have to report it as such? What's all this mean? Well, I went out and grabbed some information here for you for a city that maybe you've heard of, maybe you visited, maybe you, uh, maybe you. I've never been to New York City, but it's definitely on one of my bucket list spots to visit for sure. Um, so here in the bottom of this slide, a link, and I'll put this in the announcement as well, a link to this website from the city of New York. But it just really talks about the component units and what they are and what blended and discretely presented means to them and how they report around that as it relates back to the GASB standards that we're talking about here this week in this course. But the, the next step of this is, what are some examples? Give me some ideas about what a blended component unit would be versus a discretely presented component unit. Okay, and so these are the different units within the city of New York that are those blended component units versus discretely presented component units. Okay, and if you wanted to follow that link that I put in the message, you can expand these out and get a little more detail on what these specifically are, what they do, why they're there, and those sorts of things. Okay, but these are all examples of blended component units, so kind of more wrapped up into that primary government versus discretely presented, which is kind of more off to the side, if you will. Okay, and then the other aspect here this week is about financial performance and how, because we have a lot of things at play as a government agency. So we're not just about, like a for-profit company. We're about our product. We're about, delivering that product. If we're a low-cost provider, if we're a high-quality provider, what is our product? What is our mission? What are our values? And how does that drive our value proposition to our customers, right? So even as a low-cost provider, there's still a value there that we're providing to those customers. So what does that look like, from the corporate side of things? Well, now on the governmental side, it's a totally different picture, right? Because we're talking about providing services to our citizens, our constituents, and what does that look like, right? So community needs, disaster risk, political culture. What are those environmental factors, and then how does that work its way into and through our government, right? So we're talking about raising revenues. How do we manage our expenditures? What's our debt structure look like? And so very financial focused still, and a lot of importance around our financial viability and our strengths, but also kind of just a different orientation to that because of the nature of the business that we are as a governmental agency or government body. So there's several formulas, lots more ratios, just slightly different than what we've seen in maybe like a corporate finance or other accounting courses, but really geared towards the key indicators within a government. Okay, so operating revenues, revenues per capita, right? So how much are we bringing in for our population base? What does that look like, right? In expenditures per capita, employees per capita, right? So these are all measures of our fiscal or financial strength as a government. Very similar to what we'd see in the for-profit sector off to the side. Revenues over expenditures, fund balances, liquidity. So a lot of the things that we're concerned with are still the case to be true and areas for concern within government bodies. Okay. current liabilities, debt service. Again, we can't, even though we're a government, right? We can't overextend ourselves through debt and borrowing, right? We still have to be fiscally responsible, because we owe that to our citizens, the folks living within our jurisdiction, if you will. And so another aspect that's presented here in in week 5 is bond ratings. Okay, so I just wanted to spend a minute. The book that just kind of breezes over it, but just so you guys kind of have an understanding of what this is all about. So from a finance perspective, we want to invest in higher rated companies, right? We want to be investing in the highest rated companies are the most financially sound, right? And so there's different bodies that set these bond ratings. AAA is the highest, okay? So that's the most financially sound organizations, okay? So the state of Ohio, the U.S. federal government, whatever, okay? The city of Tiffin, the city of Columbus, Seneca County, okay? If we were Tiffin University, we recently issued a bond, okay? And so what that means then is this bond rating is going to give the world an idea of how financially strong are we? What's our viability look like? Okay, the higher the rating, the more financially sound we are, and also from a government perspective, as a governmental entity, the higher our rating, the lower our interest cost is going to be. Okay, so remember the risk reward proposition here, right? Very little risk up here in our highly rated performing government bodies. Okay, the lower we go, we cross the line from triple B into BA or BB plus. Okay, we have this line in the sand where we go to non-investment grade. So more risk, more reward. So interest rates start to climb as we go further and further down because there's more and more risk associated with those bonds. Okay. So I just wanted, again, just to give you guys kind of a little insight into that. From the government's perspective, we want to be the highest rated. We want to have the cheapest interest rate possible. Same thing is kind of true for us as consumers. If we were to buy a bond, right, or be on the investment side of that, just some of the particulars that kind of go into that. So, again, Smithville. If you haven't started it, you need to. If you're working on it, good job. Keep it up. That deadline's going to sneak up on us as we continue on. Couple of weeks left here. So keep up the great work in the course room. Questions, please let me know. Email, message board, text, cell phone, give me a call, whatever works for you. Take care. Have a great day, guys.